somewhere between broken ridgelines and a wide basin of sunburned earth, where rain rarely reached the ground and dust traveled farther than water ever could, a man crossed paths with something he never intended to find. Samuel Crow was making his way toward the hand pump near his barn when he noticed a figure slumped against the post fence. A young woman lay there, unnaturally tall, her dark hair tangled with grit and dried blood. Her clothing was stitched hide, worn and marked with simple beads that identified her as native. Her mouth was pale, split from thirst. When Samuel held out a dented tin cup of water, she regarded him with eyes that showed more caution than relief. Still, she drank. Once. Then again. Then a third time. When she finished, she rose to her full height and looked at him in silence, studying his face as if fixing it in memory. Then she turned away and walked toward the hills without speaking. Samuel watched her vanish into the wavering heat and told himself that was the end of it. He was wrong. Samuel Crow had lived on this land long enough to recognize the subtle signs of approaching trouble. His homestead sat low in a shallow basin, where grass clung stubbornly to life, and the nearest settlement lay 2 long days to the south. He had chosen isolation deliberately. No neighbors, no arguments, no expectations. Just livestock, routine, and the quiet that allowed a man to forget what he no longer wished to carry. He wasn't escaping a single mistake or crime, only the constant pressure of people convinced they understood the world better than they did. That evening, after the tall woman disappeared into the hills, Samuel went about his tasks as he always did. He fed the horses, checked the fencing where age had weakened the posts, tightened a hinge that had been complaining for weeks. Yet his thoughts kept circling back to her. The way she had looked at him, not frightened, not grateful, simply alert, as though she had measured him and reached a conclusion he hadn't been told. He assured himself it meant nothing. Travelers crossed this land often enough. Miners, wanderers, native groups moving between seasonal grounds. She had been hurt, helped, and gone. That should have been the end of it. That night, stretched out on the narrow bed inside his cabin, Samuel sensed something had shifted. The air itself felt wrong. Outside, the horses shifted and snorted, hooves scraping the dirt. One of them let out a sharp cry that cut through the dark. Samuel sat up, listening. Nothing followed except the wind brushing the walls and the distant call of something hunting beyond the ridges. He lay back, staring at the ceiling beams, telling himself that in the morning he would ride out to check the north pasture and everything would return to normal. He was still repeating that thought when dawn arrived. At first light, Samuel stepped outside, pulling his suspenders into place and squinting against the glare. The sky was washed pale, blue thinning to white along the horizon. The basin stretched before him, rock and scrub scattered across the land. Then he saw them. At first he thought his eyes were playing tricks, shadows clinging to the ridgeline. But shadows do not shift like that. Shadows do not sit mounted and motionless. He counted 10, then 20, then stopped. They lined the northern rise, the eastern slope, the descent toward the dry wash to the west. Wherever he looked, there were mounted warriors, rifles and spears, visible even from a distance. They were not advancing. They made no sound. They simply were, enclosing his homestead like a tightened cord. Samuel's hand drifted toward the rifle by the door, then stopped. One weapon meant nothing against that number. He stepped into the yard, boots crunching against the hard earth. The horses pressed against the far fence, nostrils flared. They sensed it too. Samuel scanned the ridges again. This was no raid. Raids came fast and loud. This was deliberate. This was a message. But of what? His throat tightened as he remembered the woman, the water, the steady way she had looked at him. As if summoned by the thought, movement caught his eye. One rider separated from the northern group and began a careful descent. Slow, Dahyun. Controlled. The horse moved with practiced certainty beneath a rider born to the saddle. Samuel remained where he stood, hands empty, wondering if this was the moment his luck finally ran out. The rider halted 50 feet away. An older man dismounted, his face carved by sun, wind, and authority. He wore no paint, yet none was needed. Command radiated from him. More riders appeared behind, flanking silently. Samuel swallowed. The quiet, stretched, heavy. Then the elder raised one hand. Not in greeting, not in threat. Simply raised, waiting. Samuel's heart hammered. Whatever came next had been decided long before sunrise. The question was whether his small act the day before had saved him or sealed his fate. The hand lowered. The elder stepped forward 10 paces and stopped. Samuel forced himself to breathe and match the distance. They faced one another across dusty ground. The elder's eyes were dark and unreadable. His hands were empty, though a blade hung at his side. Samuel kept his own hands visible. He said nothing. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the elder lifted his hand again and pointed, not at Samuel, but at the pump. Samuel felt his stomach drop. The water. The woman. The elder mimed pouring and drinking. Samuel nodded. Yes. He had given water. The elder spoke a short command. The riders shifted, opening a gap on the eastern ridge. Through it came a single rider. It was her. She looked different now. Her hair was braided, her clothing clean, turquoise and silver catching the light at her throat. She rode straight back on a painted horse, her height unmistakable even among the others. She descended with the same steady grace. She did not stop at a distance, but rode close, near enough that Samuel could see her clearly. Her gaze met his. She spoke, her English careful but firm. You gave water, not a question. Samuel nodded. She continued, You did not know who. Again, not a question. He shook his head. You were hurt. Something shifted in her expression. She spoke quickly to the elder. He answered with a single word. She turned back. My father says you are brave or foolish. Samuel understood then. Her father. The leader. The weight of hundreds of eyes pressed in. I didn't know, he said quietly. That is why you live, she replied. She explained the trial she had been given, the fall, the lost path, the water that saved her. Samuel listened, aware of every gaze. I'm glad you survived, he said. She studied him. You are afraid? Very, he admitted. But fear won't change what happens. Something like amusement touched her face. She spoke again to her father. He nodded once and turned away. She looked at Samuel one last time. We watch, she said. We see if you speak truth or lie. If you tell others where we are. How long? Samuel asked. She did not answer. She turned her horse and rode back toward the ridge. The elder followed. Samuel stood in his yard as the sun climbed higher. The warriors did not leave. They settled into the land, watchful and silent. He was a prisoner in his own home, and he did not know how long the sentence would last. 3 days passed beneath that unblinking presence. The riders remained on the ridges like figures carved from stone. They shifted positions with quiet discipline, but never vanished. Thin columns of smoke rose from distant fires each evening, marking time more clearly than the sun. Samuel tried to keep to his routines, yet every movement felt measured by unseen eyes. He fed the horses while knowing he was being watched. He replaced a broken rail, aware each hammer strike echoed farther than it should. He drew water from the pump, the same place where he had found the woman, and wondered if each bucket mattered. Sleep came in shallow pieces. Every sound outside dragged him awake. The animals felt his unease and grew restless. One gelding kicked at the fence until Samuel moved him away from the others. On the fourth morning, something changed. During the night, one of the watchers had descended and left a bundle near Samuel's door, wrapped in cured hide. Inside were strips of dried meat and a small sealed jar of water. Samuel stared at it for a long while. Was it sustenance offered out of respect, or was it a way to ensure he lived long enough to finish whatever judgment was being made? Either way, he ate. His own supplies were thinning, and every path out of the basin was effectively closed. By the fifth day, the solitude weighed on him differently. He had always preferred being alone, but this was not solitude. This was surveillance. He found himself speaking to the horses simply to hear a human voice, even if it was his own. On the sixth morning, the woman returned. She came alone this time. She rode down the slope and stopped where she had before, 10 feet from where Samuel stood in the yard. "You are still here," she said. "Didn't have much choice," he replied. She dismounted and stepped closer. Up close, her height was even more striking. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. "You could run," she said. "At night." "Take a horse." Samuel shook his head. "I wouldn't get far." She studied him a moment longer. "You wait," she said. It sounded neither approving nor critical. Simply factual. She walked to the pump and peered down. "Deep," she said. "Deep enough," Samuel answered. "It holds even in summer." She turned back to him. "That is why you stay. Good water helps," he said. She nodded once. "My people need water too. This land was ours. Now fences stand where none were before." Samuel felt the weight of that truth. He had bought the land under laws written by men far removed from this place. "I don't want trouble," he said carefully. She met his eyes. "Trouble already exists. The question is, what you do with it." Before he could answer, a sharp sound cracked across the basin. Then another. Gunfire. Distant, but unmistakable. Her head snapped toward the eastern hills. The watchers shifted. She spoke quickly in her language. A reply came back, urgent. She turned to Samuel. "White men," she said. "Many, Dali. Armed." Samuel's blood cooled. "How many?" 20. Maybe more. "They hunt." For the first time, something like accusation flickered in her eyes. "They hunt us." The shots drew closer. Whoever was coming moved fast. She swung into her saddle in one fluid motion. "If they find you with us," she said, "they kill you too." "Where are you going?" Samuel asked. She did not answer. She rode hard toward the ridge. The others withdrew with her, dissolving into the hills like smoke. Samuel stood alone as the sound of approaching horses grew louder, shouts, excitement, the sound of men convinced they had cornered prey. He had minutes at most to decide what he would say when armed settlers arrived to find him standing in a basin just vacated by hundreds of warriors. He had no idea which side he belonged to. They came down the eastern trail like a storm breaking loose. Samuel counted 15 riders at the front, with more shapes behind them. They wore the rough clothing of settlers, dust-stained hats, canvas trousers, rifles slung or carried ready. The lead rider raised a hand, slowing the group. They halted 30 yards from the cabin. "You alone out here," the leader called. He was broad, bearded, his eyes constantly searching the ridges. "Just me," Samuel said, keeping his hands visible. "You seen any natives pass through?" A younger rider pushed forward, rifle resting across his saddle. "We tracked a war party. Smoke yesterday. Trail led here." Samuel's mind worked quickly. He could lie outright, but they would see the signs soon enough. "I've seen signs," he said carefully. "But they moved on." "Moved where?" the leader asked. "North, I think. Heard horses not long ago." It was partly true. The younger rider narrowed his eyes. "You've got nerve living alone in this territory." "It's my land," Samuel said. "Paid for." "Paper don't mean much out here," the leader replied, dismounting. "You're lucky you're breathing." They spread out. Some watered their horses. Others circled the cabin, reading the ground. The younger rider stayed mounted, watching Samuel. "You got supplies?" the leader asked. "Some." "We'll need a bit." Samuel nodded. He had no real choice. As they reached the cabin door, Samuel caught a flicker of movement on the western ridge. A shape that might have been rock or a watcher. The warriors had not gone far. They were waiting. If these men found them, the basin would drown in blood. Inside, the leader scanned the shelves. "Coffee? A little? Good." Then he turned. "You're going to tell us exactly where they went." Samuel met his eyes. He could send them chasing shadows. He could point them into danger. Or he could tell the truth and be branded a sympathizer. Outside, a shout rose. "Fresh tracks." "Lots of them." The leader's hand went to his revolver. "How long since they left?" Samuel answered honestly. "Not long." The leader stepped outside. Samuel followed. Men knelt at the soft ground near the fence. "They were camped here," one said. The younger rider swung his rifle toward Samuel. "You lied." "I said I saw signs," Samuel replied. "I didn't say they attacked me." "Why not?" the leader demanded. "Why would they let you live?" Samuel chose his words carefully. "Because I didn't give them a reason to kill me." "You sympathize with them?" the younger man snapped. "I sympathize with staying alive," Samuel said. "They had numbers. If they wanted me dead, I would be." The leader went pale. "How many?" "Hundreds." Silence fell. 15 rifles against that was not bravery. It was suicide. "Then why were they here?" someone asked. Samuel answered simply. "They were judging me." A sound cut across the basin, high, piercing, not quite human. It echoed, then was answered from another ridge. Then another. The air filled with it, tightening. The horses stamped and snorted. "They're still here," the younger rider whispered. "Mount up," the leader ordered. "No," one man protested. "We came to fight. Not this," the leader snapped. They mounted in haste. The leader looked down at Samuel. "You're a fool to stay. It's my home," Samuel said. The men rode out fast, heading south. The calls faded. Silence returned. Movement appeared on the ridge. The woman rode down, followed by her father and several others. They approached calmly. She stopped before Samuel. "You did not tell them," she said. "I didn't want anyone killed," she spoke to her father. He studied Samuel, then spoke once. She translated. "The test is finished. You pass." Samuel felt something ease in his chest. "What happens now?" She regarded him. "No," she said. "We speak." The elder dismounted and walked toward Samuel's cabin without asking permission. It was not aggression, only the quiet certainty of someone accustomed to authority. The woman followed, and Samuel asked, aware that for the first time since settling here, he felt like a guest beneath his own roof. Inside, the elder stood at the center of the small room, taking in the plain furnishings, the shelves with their few supplies, the single window facing west. He spoke briefly. The woman translated. "He says you live simply, like a warrior. Nothing extra." Samuel shrugged. "I don't need much." The elder pulled out a chair and sat. He gestured for Samuel to do the same. The woman remained standing, positioned where she could see both men and the door. "My name," she said, offering it properly for the first time. "It means strength that stands. White men laugh because I am tall. My father says I am tall because I am meant to be." Samuel inclined his head. "It suits you." He glanced at the elder. "And your father? His name is not for you," she replied evenly. "He is chief." "That is enough," the elder spoke in a low, measured voice. She translated, in careful segments. "You gave water when I fell. You did not ask for payment. You did not ask who I was. You did not try to keep me. This is not common." Samuel met the elder's gaze. "She needed help," the elder continued. "For 6 days we watched, to see if you would ride for soldiers, to see if you would sell our location. You did not." Samuel nodded. "I don't want anyone dead," the elder replied through his daughter. "A man who seeks death is useless. A man who seeks life and chooses how to live has value." The elder reached into a leather pouch and removed a cloth-wrapped bundle. He placed it on the table and unfolded it slowly. Inside lay a necklace of worked leather and beads, blue and white, arranged in a deliberate pattern. "This is protection," the woman said. "You wear it. Our people will know you are not an enemy." Samuel stared at it. "Why me?" "Because you showed respect when you did not have to," she answered. "Because you risked your life to stay silent. Because my father sees that you understand something many do not." The elder spoke again, longer this time. She translated. "This land once belonged to all. Water flowed freely. Then lines were drawn that could not be seen. Fences were built. Ownership was claimed. You have a fence. You have a well. But when someone needed water, you gave it. You did not ask who they were." Samuel started to speak, but the elder interrupted with a single word in English. "No," she translated. "Most men would not." The necklace was pushed toward him. "If you wear this," she said, "you will live in peace with us. But there is a cost." Samuel waited. "White men will see it and call you traitor. You cannot be protected by both." The choice settled heavy in his hands. He thought of the settlers' eyes, the rifles, the certainty of their judgment. He thought of the woman collapsing by his fence, of water poured without thought. Neutrality was no longer possible. Samuel lifted the necklace and placed it over his head. The beads rested cool against his chest. "I choose to live with honor," he said quietly. The elder rose and placed a hand on Samuel's shoulder, brief but firm. No words were needed. The woman translated one final comment, her voice almost amused. My father says you are brave or foolish. Sometimes they are the same. They prepared to leave. Outside, the riders gathered. Will you return? Samuel asked. She met his eyes. If we need water, or if we need to remember not all men are the same. She mounted and followed her father. The warriors rode out, dissolving into the land. The basin fell silent again, unnaturally so. Weeks passed. Samuel worked his land with the necklace visible. Trouble came, as it always did. Settlers returned, accusing, threatening. Samuel did not back down. He spoke plainly. He chose peace. They left him standing, marked but alive. That evening, as the sun sank low, Samuel drew water from the pump and watched it settle clear in the trough. On the ridge, a lone rider appeared briefly, tall and unmistakable. A hand lifted in acknowledgement. Then she was gone. Samuel touched the beads at his chest. The choice had cost him certainty and gained him something rarer. In a land built on violence, he had chosen restraint. When travelers passed through, native or settler, friend or stranger, he would offer water and ask nothing in return. It was not glory. It was honest. And in a place where honesty was vanishing faster than rain, that was enough.